Hey guys, it's a Sauce Guy back in the studio, you know what I'm saying? Alright, today's topic we're going to be talking about is new Ryzen CPUs and if they're good and worth buying. So the new Ryzen 1800X is retail at about 500 US dollars or about 450 pounds. And they compare it to the i7 6900K, which is about a $1,000 to $1,100 US dollar processor, which is also the same as the Ryzen, as it has 8 cores and 16 threads running at both 3.2 gigahertz, but the AMD Ryzen runs at a base clock of 3.4 gigahertz and a max boost clock with HDR of 4 gigahertz. And I'm finally loading into a match from like fucking 10 years, but yeah, so they were supposed to compare it, and it was supposed to be about as good. The Ryzen was supposed to be about as good as the Intel i7, showing in Cinebench that it was actually performing better than the i7. But it honestly, it's worth the $500, I believe. But you can always get an i7 7700K, which is a new Kaby Lake processor. That's, in my opinion, better than all the AMD Ryzen processors for $330. But if you're looking for a 8-core 16-thread processor, the best for the money would be the AMD Ryzen 1800X. It does have the 8 cores and 16 threads, and these are actually real cores with a 52% performance per core than the original FX series processors, which those, they weren't bad, but they had their cores, like, they shared data with each other, which meant, they were cores, but a lot of people were skeptical about them. In fact, right now I'm using a AMD FX 8350, which back in the day was the best AMD processor you can get. And I'm using also AMD RX 480. You know, budget, but it's all good. So, and also the new Vega GPUs coming out, which are supposed to be as good as the GTX 1060. Well, it's very cool, and there was a lot of hype with AMD's Ryzen coming out. In fact, there is so much hype that, like, the stock market, I was actually looking at it, that the stocks for AMD soared to $15 more. That's like 3 times as much as its normal stock the day before Ryzen came out. But the day after people saw the benchmarks, it just crashed down. Because, yeah, it's not a bad processor, don't get me wrong. It's better than most processors out there. It's just, it didn't live up to what it expected to be. For example, that's kind of how AMD's FX series were. They're not bad processors. Today they are dated, but they're not bad processors. They're just not, they didn't live up to what they expected to be. So, it's kind of what you gotta do, right? So, AMD actually only has 1/10 of Intel's budget. So, AMD doesn't have as much money to work with. Oh my Jesus, where am I going? Ooh, get some bars, dude. Yeah, so, Ryzen is a good CPU, don't get me wrong. And it has DDR4 support now, and a lot of other things that are good too, like, DDR4, and then boost clock, and the new, I think it's called boost clock, but, depending on what cooling you're using, it'll overclock to those settings for you, depending on your cooling. For example, if you have water cooling, it'll boost up to 4 gigahertz, but if you have air cooling, it won't go all the way to 4 gigahertz, it'll maybe go to 3.6 gigahertz, 3.7. So, yeah, like, it's pretty cool though, because a lot of times people are kind of scared of overclocking because of potential issues, but with that, you don't have to worry about it because it's automatically going to do it for you, and it should not be faulty. It's pretty good, Yeah, so, Ryzen, don't get me wrong, it's good, but it didn't live up to what it expected to be, so it's kind of a problem, but it's all good. And where the hell am I going? Yeah, I swear my car is so bad. Yeah, in certain games, actually AMD's Ryzen's run better. Like in 4K DirectX 12, AMD's processors oh, what the fuck? Jesus Christ. In DirectX 12 titles like Battlefield 1 and those kind of stuff, running at 4K, it'll actually run better than it would at 1080p. It's weird, but it's true. Like, yeah, so so if you're running for 1080p gaming, I honestly recommend going with the i7 7700K, which is a better buy in my opinion. But if you're going for 4K gaming and you're going to do a lot of workstation stuff and rendering that you can actually use those extra cores and extra threads for with this new multi-threading, which is basically Intel's hyper-threading, you can actually really use it. So yeah, that is my review of my thoughts on new AMD Ryzen CPUs. Hope you enjoyed this video, and Shrek out.